What's up, iTunes, Podomatic, and of course Spotify. It has been way too long, but we are back. The During the End Phase podcast is back. This is the episode or the show where we take you through everything you need to know about Yu-Gi-Oh! For the upcoming month, and we also give you a basic breakdown while keeping it very PG so that you can listen with your children in the room. So do not worry, there will be no swear words coming out of this and no profanities, as much as Yu-Gi-Oh! Is quite painful. Today I am joined by Carl. So say hello, Carl, back from episode, I think your last one was like episode 16 or something.
Yeah, something like that. It wasn't quite a long time ago. And I'm pretty sure that PG note was a hint to me to
everyone to keep it on the down. Anyway, what we do on each podcast episode is the exact same layout as a Yu-Gi-Oh! Turn. We go through each of the phases. So our standby phase is our ones to watch, where each member of the podcast will bring you a card that is either rising or falling in value, worth investing or selling. We then bring you a tech card or a deck that we have been playing with and have had found some success in either the upcoming format or just a general card that is very, very good to out the main meta. We'll then take you into our top threes, which will be our main phase. And in our top three, we will be discussing the top three cards so far of 2022. Now, we will look back at all of the sets that came out since the start of the year, and we'll look at all of the future sets coming out as well, and we'll pinpoint the cards that we feel are worth picking up. Now, these will only be confirmed cards, and we will consider reprints as well, but we can't say it would be really, really good for droplets, even though it hasn't been confirmed as an additional or official reprint. We then take you into the battle phase, which we get down to the nitty-gritty core of this week's episode, and it will be Despia. Now, when I say Despia, we're also including Branded because our main review in main phase 2 will be the Branded structure deck, due to hit our decks, I suppose, on the 14th of April, so about 2 weeks away since the time of this podcast coming out, and it's definitely a structure deck that you are going to want to be keeping an eye on. We'll look at what the OCG got, and then we'll try and compare with the hopes that we will get the same, but the chances are they're probably going to be replaced from a Lightning Storm to a Raigeki. We'll then go to our end phase, where we will go over all of the listener questions that you guys have sent in. And I'll also try and go over some of the feedback that we've received from you guys as well, because it's been absolutely mind-blowingly good and we absolutely love it. So you guys have made us bring this podcast back and try and put as much time and effort that we possibly can in for this for everyone at home. So with all of that out of the way, we are going to dive headfirst into our standby phase and the ones to watch. So, ones to watch, as I mentioned, we will be bringing you basically a mini market watch for cards that are either rising or falling in value. And then we'll also bring you a tech card or deck that we feel will be helpful for you for this format, or a deck that we've been having a lot of fun of, so that if you have a casual locals that you want to try something new that isn't going to break the bank, you can do that as well. So, we were to have a third member on the podcast today of Kyron. Unfortunately, he was unable to join us today, but he has sent me in his 2 cards. So I'm going to go through his tech card, or a card to basically pick up. And this one's actually really, really important for the upcoming format, because when you look at a bit of a preview going forward for the Branded review, they do get a brand new card called Branded Fusion. Now, that is basically a Shaddoll fusion with a little bit extra. It doesn't require your opponent to control a extra deck monster. You can just send the materials from deck to grave. So it's not exactly that restricted. If it does lock you into fusions, but that is not the end of the world. So his card, I've kind of swapped these around, but his card that he reckoned was worth picking up, and I completely agree, is called Graisley Prison. Now, you can also consider this as not Branded Fusion. You can also consider this as Dimensional Barrier. But what Graisley Prison does, considering when we're looking into the upcoming format being very, very fusion-based, you can kind of see that Graisley Prison is basically an extended dimensional barrier. And it does also really, really hurt your opponent as well, depending on the format that they are playing. So once I can find it, it is basically an extended. This is what happens when you need to get onto the database for Yu-Gi-Oh! So it has had 2 prints, one in Shadow Spectres as a rare and one as Fusion Enforcers as a super rare. If you control a face-up monster that was tributed, ritualed, or fusion summoned, until the end of your opponent's next turn, neither player can synchro or XYZ summon synchro, and XYZ monsters cannot attack. Also, their effects are negated. So it is a little bit specific, but the chances are you will be controlling a fusion card going forward. And basically what it does is it turns off base decks. Base decks basically say, right, cool, you're not being able to synchro. You can't attack with your synchros. And it also stops anyone going into a turbo Zeus. So it is something to kind of keep in mind. And they're currently sitting at, let me have a look. I think it's a decent few quid. So they're not exactly breaking the bank, but they do kind of require you to do a little bit of digging. So that is Chiron's one to watch and one to pick up. Carl, what is your particular card to pick up?
I'd say to pick up, funnily enough, Shooting Riser Dragon. Multiple combo decks are currently using this, and I believe you can pick them up now for around £2 to £3. They were super print only in a special edition, so they haven't had a reprint. If you are a combo player, level manipulation, this card really comes up, and I believe it also has a quick play synchro effect like Formula Sync one. Correct,
yeah, it can basically so what a lot of people are using it for at the moment in Based is they can send Destroy, no, they can't send Destroy, sorry, they can send stuff like Fairy Tale Snow, and any kind of card that gains advantage in the graveyard. It reduces its level by the level sent, which then means it can be used as synchro material. But also during your opponent's turn, it can then be used as synchro material to kind of sync into anything it wants. Now, the level reduction is only during the turn it's synchro summoned. So some people are hard making it during their turn to extend their plays, but some people are also tagging out Halley Firebrax and going into it during your opponent's turn, which then basically opens up the door for you to Baron or Satellite Warrior during your opponent's turn, but you can also trigger into other effects as well. And plus, you can send Token Collector, which is a massive, massive card right now.
Yes. I'd put that either to buy or sell at the moment. I mean, if you're buying them, I believe they're sitting around £3 each. But so I'll give an example. A couple of months ago, it was literally a 99p card. So just due to the use that it's currently getting, it is 100% rising as it is.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of cards that people are looking at the moment, and that it has 2 kind of prints as well. It's got a jump promo print, which is an ultra rare, and then it's only got a promo super rare. So it is due, in my opinion, for another reprint. But the nearest set that we have that could provide us with particular reprints along those lines would be Ghost from the Past 2, which isn't due out, I believe, until June. I think it's been delayed. So excellent. Yeah, so Grazy Prison, I'm just having a look at this now. So a Fusion Enforcer super rare and a rare is like 99p. You can go up to about £4 on eBay as well, so definitely worth picking up. And then Shooting Riser Dragon as well. We are using eBay for this because stuff like Card Market has hidden prices, and when you're using eBay as well, it kind of gives you like a baseline. So on that, you kind of see, right, well, if I buy it off of eBay, I might be able to get a friend to hook me up with a little bit different. So the super rare is £6.20, £6.30, and I believe the ultra rare is like, yeah, the ultra rare is like 20 quid. So if you've got an ultra rare, I would probably sell it, because the chances are if it's going to get reprinted in anything, it would be Ghost from the Past, which would ultimately be an ultra rare or a secret rare. So definitely worth the sell, in my opinion, on that one. My one to buy now, it can also be considered as a tech card, but if you are definitely, and sticking with the theme of this episode, if you're definitely going to be buying the Despia structure decks, which I highly advise, holy crap. One card that I would say pick up, but it seems it's a little bit late to do that right now at a decent price, is Guardian Chimera. Now, Guardian Chimera, about 2 weeks ago, was like 12 quid, yeah, 12 to 17 quid. I'm now looking on eBay, and the only one left is about 30 quid, about £29. So yeah, I can't really say to sell, but I can't even really say to buy either, because I feel at 30 quid, that's way too expensive. You need about 1 or 2 to be playing it in the Despia deck, and I'd like to think that anyone that has had enough forward thinking would have gone and bought them already. But they've practically doubled in price. So my opinion for something like this would probably be to buy a batch box and hope you pull it. But Guardian Chimera, the reason it's so good, and we'll touch on this a little bit later on in the branded, when we talk about the branded and the Despia deck, is that you can make it with branded in red. And this was also another card that I would say to pick up as well. But the chances are that branded in red may, and this is not a guarantee, be in the Despia structure deck. But the branded in red at the moment is basically a quick play that can be searched off of the Luba, which again, another expensive investment for the branded deck. And it lets you target a Despia monster in your graveyard, and then you get to, or fall in a Valbaz. You add it to your hand, and then you get to fusion summon all in one go. So what this basically does is it gives you a quick effect to make the Guardian Chimera. And then the Guardian Chimera can only be summoned using monsters from hand. It has to use hand and field, so it can't be a super poly target. Keep that in mind. And what it does is it lets you draw cards equal to the monsters you've used in hand, and it lets you destroy cards on the field equal to the monsters used on the field. So if you use 2 on the field, 1 in the hand, you draw 1, pop 2. If you do it the other way around, you draw 2, pop 1. If Polymerization is in the graveyard, it can't be targeted as well. Not to mention that with the branded structure deck, you also get a spell that says your opponent cannot respond to your fusion summons. So it's basically like Meltdown.
Yeah, it's also non-targeting destruction, which is just great. They have to respond to the activation of the effects rather than the destruction targets.
Yeah, exactly like that. And not to mention that, again, if you're playing it in Despia, which is probably what it should be used in other plays, you can use it in Fluffles or Frightfurs, is you can also chain block it, because you can also be fusing with Dramaturge or Adlerbyton, and they're basically saying, okay, well, I get to come back to the board, or I get to bring another card back to the board with me. So it is a very, very powerful boss monster. I'm not surprised it's hit £30. I'm surprised how fast it's hit £30, considering that Batch came out last month. But it was definitely a card that should have been purchased. I would. Yeah.
On release, it was a £8 card.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, I think the pre-order prices were around 20. On release, it dropped to 8, and everyone slept on it. A lot of people slept on it. They thought, oh, Despia, yeah. I think we'd only just been told about a structure deck in the OCG, but we didn't know what was in it.
Yeah.
And it was heavily slept on. I think in the space of 2 weeks, it went to 15, and then it's just completely shot up.
100%. I think the other issue as well is a lot of people kind of went, branded. If I want to play the branded deck or the Despia deck, I need to get Alubas, and Alubas are like £70 and rising. Again,
on release, they were £10. Think ahead. You see a Stratos card, and
100%. You pick them up.
Yeah, it's Stratos. It's a secret. Get it.
Yeah. I mean, not confirmed, but the hopes are that Aluba will be reprinted this year. It'll be late in the year, but when we talk about the branded decks later on, to me, it's definitely something that no matter whether you want to play branded, whether you want to play Despia, whether you want to play Albaz, whether you already play Tri-Brigade or anything like that, before you even get to the reprints, it's a structure that you buy free of, because the branded fusion is such a good card that paying 30 quid for free structure decks is definitely something that is worth doing in order to, whether you hold the decks, whether you actually use them, whether you splash them, whatever. But we'll talk about that later on. Anyway.
Yeah, they're going to be great.
Yeah, exactly. So moving on to the tech cards. Now, Kyron's gone a little bit left wing with this. And I'm just having a quick look at exactly what he says. So it's called Talk Tune. Now, the reason he's mentioned Talk Tune is, I think it's only had 1 print or maybe 2 prints, but it's for, so Talk Tune is basically like, it's had 2 prints.
Is it Talk Tune Gear?
Yeah, Talk Tune Gear. So it's had 2 prints, and basically the way it works is once per turn you can either target one monster you control, equip this card to that target, or unequip this card and special summon it. A monster equipped with this card is treated as a tuner and it gains 500 attack and defense. Also, if the equipped monster would be destroyed by a battle or card effect, you destroy this card instead. Now, it's more so the fact that it can equip and unequipped. It's more so the unequipped that you're looking for. And the reason he said that as a tech card to be looking into for the future is more so for the Firions and ABC. Now, he's been playing around with ABC quite a lot at the moment. But the Firions are a new art type that come out in Dimension Fusion, which I believe is the next core set. Now, their best card is a machine, and I'm just trying to pull up the English translation on this one. So you can target a Firion monster or machine monster in your graveyard. Special summon this card from the hand, and if you do, equip that monster to this card. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can send one Firion monster from your hand or field to the graveyard, negate that effect. You can only use each of the preceding effects once per turn. A Firion's monster equipped with this card gains 700 attack. So this is Firion King Regulus. So this is basically the machine one, and it allows you to revive a machine in sense. Because you get to special summon this big boss down, which is 2800 attack, and then equip to machine monster. Now, by doing so, that's how you can loop stuff like Union Driver, because then Union Driver can then sack himself off, and that's how you get into Fortune Tune, or not Fortune Tune, sorry, Torque Tune gear. So it's a niche little tech, but it's something to keep your mind out on, because again, it's like £1, it's 20p. It's one of them cards that you're like, I'd rather have at the price of 20p a playset of them, or maybe at least one, if I'm an ABC player, if I'm a machine player, or if I want to be using the Firions in the future. So that is a little heads up from Kyron on that one as well. Carl, what is your tech card and or deck for this upcoming format, or the current format that we are in, considering that this is probably going to stay in place until about June?
Right. Funnily enough, it's quite a simple one that we all have used, especially in control decks. It is Super Poly. So Dale got me thinking about Super Poly again. I used to thrive off this card in Guru. But this format, nearly every deck plays into Super Poly. Like, you've got Guilty Gearfried for the warriors, so Baron and DPE. It just requires 2 warriors with different attributes. You got the Prank Kid, you just use a Prank Kid Weather Washer. DDD, you use the big DDD Genghis. Invoke to use Invoked LCM. And funny enough, like heavily combo decks, you've got Cordius, which is a Synchro, a Link, and an XYZ, so wipe that board out. And we all know about Venom and Mud Dragon. But I feel like Super Poly, this format, is actually extremely useful.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably going to get even bigger once we get into the Despia format, because I feel that you would main Super Poly anyway, as it is a way to extend your plays. But off the back of that as well, it's also going to be very, very good in mirror matchups, because and again, we'll talk about this later on when we get into the branded and the Despias and stuff like that. But they basically say a Despia plus a light, or Despia plus a dark. So it covers 2 of the most used attributes in the entire game. When you're Super Polying away something like DPE, it loses its float effect because it's not destroyed. Your opponent can't respond to it. And the amount of times that people don't expect it at this moment in time is really, really good. Like, against a Tri-Brigade player, they'll put double Dragon Lords and Appaloosa on the board. And they're like, yeah, cool, that's fine. A simple Super Poly and a discard, and if the discard is going to gain you further advantage, extra bonus, takes away anything from 5 interruptions to like at least 3 interruptions. So very, very good. Not to mention as well, you do get like what you can lead into. Mud Dragon's not great, but Starving Venom, it basically puts your opponent in a predicament, because you can use Starving Venom, use its effect on the field to target a card on the field and basically gain its effect. And then if they destroy it, it destroys all their super special summon monsters as well. So it's got multiple effects, and especially when you're looking at stuff like Tax Dragon as well, or Masquerade Dragon is the official name for it in the Despias. And then a lot of people with the branded fusion spell gives them access to the strongest fusions in the entire game, in my opinion. So they can play Fusion Destiny to get into DPE. They also play like a Dark Magician plus a Albaz equals a Dragoon. You've also got access to Winder, not to mention their 2 new boss monsters in the Ice Jade Despia monster, new Albaz monster, and then I think it's like Farion or Faron. I'll double check this a little bit later on as we go into the Despias, but 100% agree with Carl on that one, that the Super Poly is such a good card right now, and it's one of the ones that has been slept on, that if your deck can abuse it, even better. I think at the moment, because the format is like, Super Poly's not great against Sword Style Tenyis, it's not the best against the Brave Engine, but once you start facing down boards of DPE plus the Ice Jade or DPE and Dragoon, you're going to wish you had it. So 100% agree with Super Poly on that one.
I want to point out that Guilty Gearfried, the magical Steel Knight, was a fusion that went under the radar in a quite unknown set. It's an ultra rare, which just requires 2 warriors with different attributes. So there goes your DPE and your Baron.
There you go. So that's actually a great shout, considering the amount of times that you'll be facing down a Baron, especially in base. Like I've been lucky enough to not have to face a lot of based decks at the moment, but straight away we know that it's going to be 100%. It's going to be an art type that at a competitive level you're definitely going to be seeing, and it just doesn't stop. It's got so much gas, it's crazy. So yeah, 100% something to look forward to ish. Okay, cool, moving on. So my tech card or deck, again, this is very, very basic, but everyone should be playing Token Collector right now. Token Collector destroys Sword Soul, which is why I'm not saying they're falling out of the meta, but it's definitely something that allows them to, I don't say allow them, but it definitely is something that puts them on the back foot, and it causes them to have to adapt their plays, look at alternative routes, and basically just in general adapt what they're going to have to do as well. Off the back of that, as on top of that, is it also deals with the branded package. So if they're going to try and activate the branded pack, not branded package, sorry, deals with the Brave package. So a card that has now recently been reprinted as a super rare in OTS 18. Yeah, OTS 18 that we're on. You've got a super rare, an ultra rare, and a rare, and a common, I believe, also came in the Megatins. So something that if you don't have a playset of, you should be, and it should 99% be in your side decks for all events, because you'll be looking at stuff like if you're facing Sword Souls, I'll be amazed if you don't have at least one Sword Soul at your locals. Less so the Brave package, but it's just one of them cards that instantly shuts down those decks, and until they get put into check, a Token Collector, the fact that it can summon itself from the grave, or it can also summon itself from the hand, really does put your opponent on the back foot when they're playing a particular deck like that. Excellent. So that was all of our tech cards and market watch cards that you need to be looking out for. Like I said, there's a couple of cards that are worth selling. There's a couple of cards that are I wouldn't say worth kind of getting rid of as of buying into, investing. Like I don't feel that Guardian Chimera is going to have a increase. I don't think it's going to go higher than £30. It's probably not.
That window of opportunity is gone. That window of opportunity was open when it came out.
Yeah, 100%. So it's kind of one of the ones where if you've got multitudes of them because you were smart and you jumped on it from the start, then 100% sell it, make a bit of money, and go from there. Excellent. Okay, so we've talked well and truly long enough on this bit, so we're going to move into our main phase 1, and we're going to talk about our top 3 cards of 2022. So, the top 3 cards of 2022. Just as a quick recap of what we've received so far, we're not really, unless Carl's going to have the next big brain play and consider Hidden Arsenal as an acceptable set that he wants to discuss. The only other stuff that's really come out in 2022 is probably going to be the batch set, which was obviously Guardian Chimera and everything else as well. So, Carl, what is the first card of 2022? Whether it be one that is yet to come out or whether it be one that has come out, have you either enjoyed, do you like, or do you think really took a specific deck up a level?
So I want to stay on the theme of Branded and Despia. We had a common print card with Chimera called Branded Disciple, which annoyingly was the text is incorrect, so it doesn't match the OCG's text. It would be a continuous negate for cards on your opponent's field. However, I believe it's going to get errated. Like, the Japanese version of this card makes Branded and Despia so much better in having cards that are negated, and I believe it pluses you. So I'll read the card out. It says, when a monster effect is activated by your opponent resolves, while you control a level 8 or higher fusion monster with 0 attack or defense, you can negate that activated effect. At the end of the damage step, if monsters with 0 attack battle with each other, you can destroy your opponent's battle monster. However, the OCG one, I would have to find it and put it up.
I've got like an old translation here for it, whether it's appropriate or not.
That's how the OCG has it, and it is incredible.
Yeah, so this one is, when your opponent's activated monster effect resolves, if you control a level 8 or higher fusion monster, and that opponent's monster has 0 attack and or defense, you can negate the activated effect. At the end of the damage step, if 2 monsters with 0 attack battled, you can destroy that opponent's monster that battled. So is the difference, I'm trying to put them up side by side.
So the Quitaris, I believe it's Despian Quitaris, is actually a great card in the OCG, while for us it's mediocre.
Yeah. Hopefully Carl is still on. His mic's dropped a little bit, but I think that the difference is between the two. So this is basically the line that you need to work with. So on the English translation, it's while you control a level 8 or higher fusion monster with 0 attack or defense. Whereas the previous one states if you control a level 8 or higher fusion monster and that opponent's monster has 0 attack. So exactly. I don't get the English, like if it's a bad translation and the English and when it's been translated to English has done what it should be, which doesn't really make too much sense because you need to control a level 8 or higher fiend fusion monster with 0 attack, but Quinteris changes everything apart from level 8 or higher fusion materials. If it was just level 8 or higher fiend monsters, then you should be able to do it.
I believe this will get errated, maybe on structured deck release or maybe shortly after, but it's, there was another card there going back to the card for, what was the deck? The control deck.
It wasn't even so they already made a mess up with the Alba when it first came out. So in the European first prints of Dawn of Majesty, the Aluba actually said a Despia card when it should say a branded card. So that already had its change up already.
So I believe they've messed up again here, and we should expect an errata. And if we do, this card will become a one-off staple because you're able to search it and have basically a continuous negate as long as you have Quitaris on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it should definitely be. It's always difficult because it's not exactly like we are not Japanese speaking, so I can't read the kanji. I don't think very few of us can actually read the original print, so we never know directly if it's a bad translation that we've got first off or whether it is a mistake. Hopefully it is a mistake because then that would make a huge difference to the deck. The artwork's amazing as well, so the artwork I'll be putting up on the screen for everyone, but basically you can see that it has it's got like Albaz in his dragon form with Ecclesia, the Invictus or Invincible, I believe, the one that was Sword Soul, and that's a card as well, by the way, that's gonna be very interesting for the Albaz deck, and they're basically fighting the Despias, so it looks really, really cool. Excellent. Okay, so moving on a little bit, when we're looking at stuff that's released this year, so I'm just going to quickly go over it, or the stuff that we've had released so far. So we've had Hidden Arsenal. We haven't really had a huge amount, to be honest. We have Batch, which was really cool actually because it introduced us to the Libromancers, it introduced us to the Dinomorphias, which, as a little shout out to that as well, is getting a new like a dino. They get like a T-Rex, which completely changes the Dinomorphia play structure, which comes out in Dimension Force as well. So that's one to look into. We also received basically a month ago the Grand Creators, which brought into light the Exo-Sisters, which are getting new support as well, alongside the Punks and of course the Brave Engine, the Brave Tokens, you name it. We also, in theory as well, as a nice little shout, we got Master Duel, but to be honest, I've kind of fallen out of love with Master Duel at the moment. It's not really maintained what I would have liked it to do. But
same here. I think that's well said for everyone at the moment. I think it's lost a lot of its fan base.
Yeah, I feel that the biggest issue with that is the cross-platform. Well, not the cross-platform, the cross-ban list. Like, it doesn't really serve a purpose. Like, if it replaced the need for online simulators, 100% I would love to play and test and everything. But I think the cross-ban list doesn't really give you the ability to test accordingly or properly or anything like that. So it does make it very, very tricky. Okay, so my first card, it's just a card that has taken a deck up a level. Now, keep in mind as well, the way this deck is played in the European regions is different to the American regions, but no matter what region you're in, you're playing this card at pretty much free. And that is DD Griffin. So DD Griffin is a brand new super rare card that came out in Batch, which is for DDDs. It basically says if you control a DD monster, you get to special on this card from your hand for free. Ultimately, that doesn't sound like a lot, just that effect there. But it also has an effect. Go on.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there is a lot more. The fact it's a scale 1, great. Its pendulum effect is okay. It can boost one of your monsters by 500 to then, for each Dark Contract spell or trap you control, and then destroys the Griffin, so puts it into the spell zone. It's a level 4, so that helps out with your rank 4 plays. It also has the ability that if it is pendulum summoned, you get to discard a DD or Dark Contract to draw a card, which is great to put like Necro Slime in the graveyard or additional contracts into the graveyard. If it is special summoned from the graveyard, which is very easy to do, it lets you add a DD card. Now, not only can it just search out your normal DDs like your Swell Slimes and everything else, but it can also search you out DD Headhunt, which is a trap card that basically says if you control a triple D monster, you can take control of one of your opponent's monsters and it becomes a DD monster. Now, that is relevant because of another card that came out as well, which I'm going to give it an honorable mention, is I believe it's like DD Machina. And I was going to choose this instead. I'm just trying to find it. It's always great trying to Google these. So I was going to try and choose this instead. But ultimately, I feel that the Griffin, and don't kill me on this one, is a bigger addition to the DD deck because it serves more purposes and unlocks more options than the Divisor King Deuce Machina. The Deuce Machina is basically an XYZ that can go on top of any DD monster you control. So it's a one card XYZ in a sense. And then it also has the ability to detach 2 materials or pop a contract to take control of a monster your opponent controls that has activated its effects, which is great for stuff like Dragoon. It's also great for stuff like DPE, but it is specific because they have to control it. If they don't control it, it ain't happening. So yeah, my one is Griffin, but I needed to do an honorable mention for the Divisor King as well.
Yeah. The Divisor King is incredible, but like you said, it's very situational, but Griffin is definitely the better.
Yeah. And for those of you listening that don't know what the difference is between the the North American setup for this deck and this one, is we're not allowed to play the promos, like the jump promos or the manga promos. So we don't get to play the Zero King Rage, which is actually really important for the deck because it can basically lock your opponent out of hand traps for that particular turn. The hopes are that we're going to get this in Ghost from the Past and get a lot of reprints for DDDs as well, because you've got stuff like Copernicus, which could also be a card that is worth shifting, and loads of others as well. So, Carl, what is the second card from the year that you feel is worth looking out for, or worth, kind of that you've enjoyed?
Well, this one is quite controversial, but I believe it'll come out this year. There's no reason it won't. Sky Striker Mobilized Linkage.
It's already. I think is it already been confirmed? It's either already been confirmed or it's high speculation that it's in Ghost from the Past.
I believe it's high speculation. So if you control no monster in your main monster zone, you can send one other card you control to the graveyard. So again, I believe you can special summon a Ray by doing that if you have the field spell. And if you do, special summon a Sky Striker Ace monster from your X step to the X step monster zone. Then, if there was at least light and dark Sky Striker Ace monster on your field and or graveyard, the special summon monster gains 1,000. That's not really impressive. It's more the fact that it's a 1-card X deck monster and it's a quick play. So, we were all like, oh, they don't have the Ray and they don't have the Rose. It's fine. We can win. Not anymore. Like, Linkage is going to bring out that monster out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, off the back of that as well, they've also been given a new, I think it's like a new jump card that we still don't know the official effects of it.
Looks like me.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to cause a huge amount of issues. Not in a complicated way, but if it has the effect that a lot of people are speculating, it could be, not that strikers needed to be any more annoying, but it would put them up a very annoying notch.
Off the back of Linkage, you do have the other Sky Striker, Striker Mecha Weapon, HAMP, H-A-M-P. If you control a Sky Striker Ace monster, you contribute one monster on the field, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand to the attributed monster side of the field. You can only special summon it once per turn. When this card is destroyed by battle, you can target one card your opponent controls and destroy it. I mean, come on now. They've got a searchable kaiju. So basically, they get a double pop.
Well, I mean, they always struggled to deal with Goon. Like, as soon as you put Goon on the board, they couldn't out it. And now, I don't know, Konami are just looking at these like, oh, they're struggling with this. We'll give them that. Or, oh, they're dealing with this. We'll give them that. So,
and how do you think? I wouldn't be surprised if, to get the sale of the product that contains these two cards, they're going to go, engage to 2?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be looking at this and be like, oh yeah, engage isn't that bad, or we can update this with no issue at all. And it's like, no, please don't do that. And they're like, yeah, no, we're going to give them to it. And you're like, cool, thanks.
This is a deck that I've traded into to not play, but to try and gain profit once this happens.
Yes, we've all done that with Sky Strikers. Definitely not to play it and be annoying as heck.
I got other annoying decks. I won't go that far. That is Sky Strikers.
Excellent. I'm not going to spend too long on this next card because we're going to talk about it again in just a bit. But it would have been really bad to not mention this because I think at current, it is arguably going to be the best card of the year or one of the best cards of the year. And that's Branded Fusion. So I mentioned it before, I'm going to mention it later, but its effect basically reads, Fusion summon one fusion monster that lists Fallen of Albaz as material from the extra deck, using 2 monsters from your hand, deck, or field as fusion material. You can only activate 1 Branded Fusion per turn, and you can't special summon monsters from the extra deck the turn you activate this card except fusions. Now, the reason this is so good is because we're constantly getting more and more Albaz fusion monsters. They're yet to bring one out that is ridiculously broken. Like, everything that they've got so far are really good to unlock the ability of Dragoon plays or Shaddoll Winder plays and everything else. But the ability that you can use them from the hand, the ability that you can use... I'm trying to think, what's the rock called? There's a light rock that can be used...
Right now, I've got it nearby, so carry on, I'll find it.
So I'm trying to think what it is. It's basically like a little rock that's a light. I think it's like one of the... it's escaped me, but Carl will find it. But basically, you can send that to the graveyard. And because it's a light, it can be used as the light material for the Albion Fusion, which is also another card that you guys might want to be looking into, unless it is in the structure deck, which we expect it to be. It can be replaced as a Dark Magician. So that's how you can get into Dragoon. You've got it.
Yep. So it is the Light Hex Sealed Fusion.
That's the one, the Hex Seal.
You can substitute this card for any one fusion material monster, but the other fusion material must be correct. You contribute fusion material monsters on your field, including this face-up card. Special summon one corresponding light fusion monster from your extra deck. So it's a double summon.
Yeah.
Another one, Goddess with the Third Eye was the other one people are using.
Yeah. So this is why it's mad, is because it will let you get into the 2 new cards that we also get in a structure deck. And one of them is like discard a card, shuffle the materials in the graveyard back into the deck to then fusion summon. So that gives you instantly 2 fusion monsters on the board already. And then the other one, which is like the Ice Jade Albaz, which looks incredible, by the way, basically lets you... I think it's got an effect that can only be used like once every other turn. And I think it's send a card from your extra deck to the graveyard to banish a card your opponent draws. But again, we'll talk about those a little bit later on. So, Carl, what is your third and final card from 2022, part 1? We will do another one of these later on that you would advise people to look forward to or to kind of get.
And only it would have been Guardian Chimera, but we've spoken about that so much and the price has gone up. I can't ask people to get that. However, if we're staying on theme, I'll probably say Masquerade the Blazing Dragon. It's, again, I believe that, however, unlike Chimera, hasn't gone up in price too much. But basically, remember the old Red Eyes XYZ? Every time they activate a card effect, burn them. It's exactly that, but it's a reoccurring fusion. So as long as you control, I believe it's a monster from the extra deck or a fusion monster when it's in the graveyard, it just special summons itself. Granted, if you do that, it doesn't get its burn effects, but then it is free material for another fusion.
Yeah, it's just recycling fodder, basically. And it's a little bit better than the Red Eyes because the Red Eyes was on resolution. So if you went imperm, it would negate the Red Eyes and they would take no burn. But
you have to pay to activate. It's
exactly.
Incredible.
So it's a maintenance cost, which is why we kind of call it Tax Dragon. So I believe it was Charlie that gave it that name. And if you have double, it will charge them 1,200 life points to activate cards. Off the back of that as well, if it is under something like Mystic Mine, it still activates because it's not an activated effect. It just basically says to your opponent, you have to pay to activate your stuff. So it still goes under Mystic Mine because it does not activate, which is actually really, really good. Now, I believe Tax Dragon was the end of last year. So technically, you can't have it for this one.
Screw you guys.
I do not listen to these rules. These rules mean nothing to me. Yeah, like I mean, it's, as you can see, the theme of this episode is all about the branded because it's a structure deck that I am super excited for, but it's also a deck that I think is going to be incredibly good for everyone because it's a fusion based deck. So if you've ever played a fusion deck, if you play a deck that only makes fusions, it now gives you the ability to bait out the hand traps that might cause you issues. It gives you the ability to set up interruptions. It gives you the ability to set up control cards. So very, very cool cards.
A random very quickly then, just to make up for that mistake, because I thought that was this year. Blue Eyes Jet Dragon. You control 2, they can't target anything, and it recurs every time a card's destroyed. That's it.
Yeah, there you go. So I was a little bit shocked that you didn't mention some of the new Blue Eyes support because I'm about to do the exact same thing with my one. So
go on.
I mean, there's no surprise on this. This card's kind of annoyingly all it's really done is made the Souls engine more abusable for everyone else. So I'm hoping Konami stick with the same fact that Souls isn't the issue and neither is this new card. It's the players that are using it. But basically right now, my card of the year is Illusion of Chaos. I think it looks incredible. The effect is amazing. So you can ritual summon this card with Chaos form. Not that you're unless you're playing the ritual build of Dark Magician, you're not going to do it. You reveal this card in your hand. Add 1 Dark Magician or 1 non-ritual monster that mentions it from your deck to your hand. Then place a card from your hand onto the top of the deck. So what that basically does is it lets you search out Magician's Souls. It lets you search out Magician's Rod. It can also let you search out the new Timaeus Dragon. It can search you out. I'm trying to think what other ones mentioned Dark Magician. But It can also search you out the Illusion Apprentice. So if you want to be able to protect your stuff from being attacked over, it can search that out as well. It puts a card onto the top of the deck. So you can put back bricks like Red Eyes Fusion if you've already opened one up. You can also use it to bait out Ash Blossom for Red Eyes Fusion. It will then also be able to put Red Eyes back to the top of the deck, Dark Magician back to the top of the deck. You could activate Dark Magical Circle, and that would guarantee your resolution. But the ability that it lets you open up the pass to get to Magician Styles, which is probably one of the best cards because it gives you draw power, it gives you send power, it also gives you a free body on the board, is absolutely crazy. And it's done so much for the Dark Magician deck that to me it's probably my best card of the year so far, for personal reasons, less so actual reasons of how effective it will be for the entire meta. But yeah, I just think it's changed the Dark Magician deck in such a good way that it works out amazingly.
Must be nice.
I mean, to be fair, Blue Eyes got some nice stuff as well. They got the new fusion spell, they got the new Jet Dragon, and then they also got the is it not Emperor of D? It's not Lord of D as well, is it? What's it called? It's like Dictator of D, as if they didn't give it enough D's to go with.
Yeah, as if it needed a certain start of the word called dictator.
Yeah. We're gonna call it Dictator.
Don't get me wrong. Blue Eyes is in a pretty good place. There's a couple of regional tops, and there's obviously a ton of local tops, but you can never classify how good a locals really is. It's just difficult because their end board never gets much better. While Dark Magician, it seems to be a continuous resource grind, and you keep your resources and you keep going. But Dark Magician is, we end on, what do we end on? We end on access to a Baron, a Spirit Dragon, and if we're lucky, a Fusion, or if we're lucky, an additional XYZ. Blue Eyes is still not in a place to be competitive yet, by any stretch of the imagination. I know there's a lot of people that are going to hate me for that, but it's sadly the truth. Like, don't get me wrong, Blue Eyes and Infernoids were my baby back in the day. I loved those two decks, but neither one is in the position to compete to what Dark Magician has right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the sad thing is Dark Magician are only really competing at the high level because they got Dragoon, which is why there is a lot of hope that Dragoon doesn't get neutered, because if it does, then, not saying that it's the end of the road for Dark Magician, but they lose their biggest power play. Like, before Dragoon, they didn't really have this this line of power, so to speak. I am waiting on the day that we get a Blue Eyes Dark Magician. Like, given us the Red Eyes Dark Magician makes sense because it's like, cool. It's Joey gave Yugi the Red Eyes, so it makes sense, but kind of thing.
Wasn't there in the anime? I'm going back years now, but I think I can remember there being a Blue Eyes Gaia.
I don't know. The only time there's ever been a fusion between Yugi and Kaiba, and I'll probably get someone will probably tell me from a proper they've watched the anime, but I believe it was only BLS, and I don't even think that was officially in the anime, but or maybe it would have been. But it was like Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon and Buster Blader. So,
is that the Knight? The Blue Eyes Ultimate Knight.
Exactly. So it's a bit of a, not a bad one, but it was one of them. No, exactly. It was one of them ones that was back in the day. It was like, we need a boss monster that is just an absolute tank, and they gave us that. So
Blue Eyes are just missing their own XYZ, and they should make it so it has to use Blue Eyes monsters. If we had something that, I don't know, gave us access to a card in the deck, like, special summoned another Blue Eyes, even something as stupid as that will be the extender that we need.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is where it's weird because it's always not officially said, but it's always kind of not annotated, but it's always kind of I can't think of the bloody word, but it's kind of said that Blue Eyes gets Synchro, Dark Magician gets XYZs, and then they can both have fusions. So
sure.
It's kind of a
Our Synchro is updated already. We've got a Synchro that protects, and it has to activate, and it only protects until the end of that turn, end of the next turn. And then the other one is a Grave Negate, which can very easily be outed with an Imperm Vader or anything, and a especially some in the card from the X deck. But then the targets from the X deck. So even if they gave us like a level 7 light Blue Eyes Synchro that we can't make, but we can bring out with Spirit, because the targets for Spirit basically is just Black Moon bouncer card. Like, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is why I could see, like, arguably in the future, because you've got Blue Eyes Fusion, so they've already got this fusion spell, is I could arguably see that there be a fusion for Dark Magician and Blue Eyes, because that's one thing that they share. Yeah. And it's basically, all right, here you go, here's one card that appeases both sides of the anime. Whether it actually correctly be correct for the lore, it would be something interesting to see. But I agree with you. I think for now, Blue Eyes need a Dragoon counterpart that is basically a synchro, but it would need to be exactly like the Dark Magician, where it says it requires to use Blue Eyes. But then we're waiting on the day that we receive a card that lets you synchro from deck. If we ever get a card that is like a spell card that lets you synchro from deck, then that's probably where that Blue Eyes synchro would be the counterpart to Dragoon, where it could just be played from deck.
Definitely, yeah. Blue Eyes already bricks. Let's put in a Dark Magician as well, make it brick some more.
I love my brick, I do.
This is my brick and no one else's.
Excellent. Okay, so that's it for our top threes. Let's move into the battle phase, where we are going to get down to the nitty gritty and talk about the Despia deck as a whole. So Despia, whether you count, we're probably going to talk a bit more about Branded rather than Despia itself, because Branded is basically an underlying theme that has shared the stage with all of the, like, I'd probably call it the Branded lore. I suppose the Branded lore is probably more acceptable. So this is kind of spanned from Rise of the Duelist, when we got introduced to Dogmaticas. You've then had Tri-Brigades, you've had Spriggans, you've had Ice Jade, Sword Souls, Despias, and now Albaz is getting his own structure deck. So if you're interested in the lore behind that story, definitely have a Google online. Like, there's not an official lore of it, but you can kind of see through different artworks that it's all about, at this moment in time, Albaz being kind of that shunned individual. It's an individual that has come to Earth, or to the planet, or to wherever the lore takes place, and Ecclesia kind of takes the side of Albaz. She tries to look after him, she tries to protect him from what is considered to be the evil, I say church, sounds very bad, but when you look at the artworks, it does look like you have Fleur de Lis, you have Maximus. They're kind of like the church that are trying to imprison Albaz and all of his dragon forms. So
Dragmaturge is the leader of the church and the one that's corrupt, and Fleur de Lis is the same as Ecclesia doesn't know what's going on, and as soon as she figures out what's going on, she leaves to find.
Yeah. So Dramaturge is Maximus, and it's going to be very convoluted. So this isn't a lore video, but this is something that you can kind of look into a little bit yourself. But you can see the evolutions of the cards. So Ecclesia turns into, I think it's like Ecclesia the Victorious, which is falls into the Sword Soul lore. There's a lot of change in art types in this. Maximus, Dogmatica Maximus, becomes Dramaturge because they mix with the Despias, and Despias is like the underlying evil theme, which is where you get Aluba, which is basically the Despia counterpart to Albaz. You've also got some of the Sword Souls change sides. So they were on the good side. They were helping Ecclesia and Albaz. And they change sides, or one of them changes sides, and it goes from, I believe it's Duke, into the new Cheesing.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So the artworks can kind of tell the story. I'm not going to go into the story as much because we're not here to kind of talk about the lore. But if it is something that you guys want to see or you want us to do, then I'll be more than happy to do like a special edition, like lore podcast or video. But basically the idea is that the story is constantly going on. And like I said, we've been introduced to Ice Jades, which is why Albaz has all of these different fusions. So Albaz has fusions with Spring Guns. He's got the Titaniclad. It's also got the new ones, which is like the Ice Jade. And then we've also got the Furion, which is basically I believe it mixes with Sword Souls. I believe that's the one that is fusion on. Anyway, so branded Despia, whatever you want to call it. Why is it such a good deck to be looking into? Well, it's got so much versatility. We've already talked about how the lore spreads across all of these different archetypes, the Despias, the Sword Souls, the Ice Shades, the Dogmaticas, you name it. So what makes it spread even further, or what makes it such a good thing, is the fact that Albaz is the continual state of everything. If you wanted to, you could put Albaz in a Tri-Brigade deck, you could put Albaz in a Dogmatica deck. It really does give you a very nice range to kind of work between and work around. Now, the most recent one has, of course, been Despia, and the reason that is the more not informative one, but the more kind of focused one, is for the pure fact that it revolves around fusioning, which is what the new branded structure decks due out in April kind of does. It gives you that branded fusion. It gives you a card that basically says your opponent can't respond to fusion summons, and then it gives you brand new fusion monsters as well. So when you look at the versatility of what the branded deck can do, or what the branded engine can do, that's exactly it. It can become its own deck in its own right, or it can be used as minor engines in all of the following decks. So it can help boost Dogmaticas. It can help be an additional route of play as a disruption for stuff like Spring Guns. Now, keeping in mind as well, you've got Tri-Brigades are Link focused, Spring Guns are XYZ focused, Dogmaticas don't care about the extra deck at all, and then your Despias are fusions. So Sword Souls are Synchros, of course, and then the Ice Jades, again, they don't really have a major extra deck kind of out point. So it gives you a lot to look into of what they can kind of offer, and whether you're using the branded, as I've said, as a boost, or whether you're using branded as a as its own right, it just has so much versatility that it's why that when we talk to our main phase 2 about specifically the structure deck Albaz Strike, why it is worth picking up, because it has so much versatility with previous decks as it is. So whether you are a lore fan, you're going to want the deck. Whether you want it for the engine on a competitive level, you're going to want it. If you like the if you've got Dogmaticas, you've got less so Tri-Brigades, because they do lock themselves into links, and branded would lock themselves into fusions. But if you want to pick your Spring Guns back up, if you want to pick up your Ice Jades that you've been keeping a hold of because they're just crazy cheap, if you want to spice up your if you want to spice up a Dogmaticas now that Nadir's at 2, it's just something that could be utilized in all of that. As my Norton notification pops up. Carl, what is your kind of like your take? Because I know you're a Dogmatica player. You're like Dogmatica Invoked, which is, you know, it can work really, really well with the Invoked, because like I said, the Invoked would lose their ability to go into Link monsters, but it would gain the ability that just simply playing one Alistair or two Alistairs and a Meltdown, the Meltdown protects all of your fusion plays, which is crazy. So I know you've looked into the Dogmatica side of it and the Despia side of it. So what's kind of your thoughts on this particular archetype?
I feel like this archetype in general is absolutely amazing. It's bringing back fusion in its own sense. So fusion, obviously being the oldest extra step mechanic, it's gonna pique a lot of the older players. Me being one of them. And as soon as you get Aluba, which is a Stratos card that also special summons and negates the card, but you know something's going to go right with this archetype. And you got Tragedy, it's a tragedy in the sense that it's amazing. Like, it searches so many of your cards, gets you that instant access. I believe Despia was even being played on its first set of release as a rogue contender, because people were using Gold Sark and Foolish Burial and sending Tragedy, and you were taking everyone by the surprise factor. So even without the structure deck, it was an okay fun deck. The structure deck comes out, makes it absolutely broken. You're looking less towards being pure Despia, more to, like Dale said, either Dogmatica or Invoked. I'm seeing a lot of the mix in the engines now. So they're having a very small Invoked engine with the Despia engine, with all the branded support, and even some of the Dogmatica. Just because Dogmatica, as long as you have a fusion monster on the field, it can go off. But personally, I like the Dogmatica variant. I like the Control-y variant. Because the deck can naturally push for turn, and its monsters are naturally controlling, but with high stats. The deck in general is taking the game, in my eyes, it's taking the game back a bit. So it's making me look at the formats years ago. Like, it's going to sound ridiculous, but like Gladiator Beast, when they just got out these big, beefy boys and were able to just swing for game. That's what I see when I look at Despia, personally. It all comes down to how you want to build it. Like Branded in red is such a busted card and getting out Chimera, quick play opponent's turn. I was planning on playing this deck before the structure deck got released. And then as soon as the structure deck got released, I went, oh no, here it comes. Here, open the floodgates. Everyone's going to want this deck because it's going to be a top contender, if not the top contender. But I'll still give it a go. Also, something you have to consider is not everyone's playing Incredible Ecclesia. How it is a 35 to 40 pound card. I'd say it's so difficult because like 50% of the OCG is playing it, 50% isn't. And then the same thing can be said for the Edgemp and Patchwork engine in the deck. It's the great thing about this deck. You build it how you want it. There's no judging. You've obviously got the Brave engine, which enough said. The Brave engine, if you can afford it and you're going competitive, obviously is going to be the best route. But you build it how you want to play it. There's no right or wrong, which there never is a right and wrong in any deck. But there's obviously a more successful and competitive build. But I feel that in Despia, as long as you're running the core part of the engine, the Despia side's fine. Same thing for the Branded. As long as you're running the core part, it's good. You can play this deck however you want to, and the success will be there as long as you're playing it correctly. There's no right or wrong build.
Yeah, so obviously, as Carl's mentioned, that there's so many different variants that you can work with. If you wanted to focus on control, that's where you can start mixing it with the Dogmaticas, because ideally, they don't care that you lock yourself into fusions. So activating an Nadir Servant can set up your Shadol plays, which gives you a newer line of play, which can control the state, can slow it down, while also backing it up with stuff like the Ice Jade fusion as well, which gives you the ability to kind of interrupt as well as slow your opponent down. You've then got people that take it into their own stride, that they want to put spicy techs in. So we've already seen that from Kyron's build, he likes to play Master Change 2, which is amazing because you can discard Tragedy, but you can also turn Tragedy or Aluba into a Dark Law, and then straight away you're controlling your opponent's graveyard. In addition to that as well, when you look at Aluba, which is probably the biggest, Aluba and Ecclesia are kind of like the disappointing parts of the deck. And what I mean by that is, it's one of the ones that if you're wanting to buy it now, you're kind of waiting for the reprints of both those cards. Now, the Incredible Ecclesia, what makes it so good is that you can tag her out. So go in second, you can special summon her down. You can then tag her out and go into an Albaz. Without conducting your normal summon, that Albaz will then be able to trigger its effect to discard a card and, in theory, poly using itself and one of your opponent's monsters. So that's where Kaijus can come into play, because Kaijus will allow you to dictate the other fusions that you can make from your extra deck. But as a little preview going forward, when we do talk about the Branded structure deck specifically, you need to look at the main new fusion monster is called Mirror Jade, the Ice Blade Dragon. It requires Fallen of Albaz plus a fusion Synchro XYZ or Link monster. So this is where Albaz himself would come into effect. It's also where Ecclesia could then tag out during your opponent's turn, because she is a quick effect to then bring down Albaz. If you have the continuous spell that also comes in the structure there that basically says your opponent cannot respond to your fusion summon plays, they have to stop the Ecclesia, and if they don't do that, they will lose their monsters. You can only control one Mirror Jade, the Ice Dragon. Once per turn, quick effect, you can send one fusion monster that lists Fallen of Albaz as material from your extra deck to the graveyard to banish one monster on the field. Non-target, banish. You can, but this effect cannot be used again the next turn. So it's one in every other turn. So you're either going to be using it during your opponent's turns, or you're going to be using it during your turn. If this face-up fusion summon card you control leaves the field by your opponent, you can activate this effect. Destroy all monsters they control during the end phase of this turn. So it's an effect that you need to keep in mind. Now, that is probably the best boss monster that they receive in the structure deck. But you can kind of see the utility, because off the back of that, its effect to send a fusion that lists Albaz gives you access through Titaniclad to either another Albaz or to a Dogmatica. So that's when you can start making your Ecclesia into the Fleur de Lis plays, into your Maximus plays, into everything else you need. Keeping in mind as well that there are other fusion cards that let you search out a Tri-Brigade, that let you search out other cards as well, which is why people are playing, and I believe it's the common card. I think it's not the common card, let me just find it. Is it the Brigadine or the Bridgehead? Bear with me 2 seconds.
The one in the structure there that's coming, the bird.
Yeah, so basically you use this thing called Brigrand the Glory Dragon. So it requires Fallen of Albaz plus a level 8 or higher. Now, if this card is sent to the graveyard because it was sent to this turn, you can either add or special summon a Tri-Brigade monster. Now, the reason that is important because also in the structure deck, they get a Tri-Brigade Merry Carrier. You don't use the first and the second effect this card once per turn. So when your opponent activates a monster effect and you control a fusion monster that lists Fallen of Albaz as material, quick effect, you get to send this card from the handle field to negate that effect. So you can kind of already see the synergies, the search abilities, the plays. And this is why the structure deck is appealing to everyone, because if this Tri-Brigade Merry Carrier becomes a common, obviously it'd be a lot cheaper to pick up, but it's just a card that the Tri-Brigade players might want. It does give them a form of an Omni Negate in a sense, or technically a Monster Negate. And then they've got all of the other cards as well that could be utilized. I'm actually glad that this is being kept as a structure deck and not being changed like they've done in the past.
Yeah, definitely. It would be a pain to be getting the whole thing out of a booster.
Yeah, exactly. So you can kind of see the versatility, and like I said, we'll go over the single cards that you get in the structure deck a little bit further on, but you can see how it's got the control, it's got the aggression. Now, the Despia engine itself, the reason that is so hyped for this particular deck is because it adds consistency to the deck. So whether you're going first or second, the Despia engine is going to be better than the Dogmatica engine because the Dogmatica engine, in theory, is set up to be more control. It requires you to go first, whereas the Despias just give you that consistency to get you to that branded fusion, to get you to your branded continuous, which will protect your fusion plays. It just gives you a lot more versatility. It gives you to branded in red, which would ultimately lead you into your Guardian Chimera during your opponent's turn. So it's giving you different routes of play. It's giving you different options in order to kind of deal with your opponent's plays, deal with what they're trying to throw your way as well, whether it be interruptions, whether it be board breakers, you name it. The other thing to be mentioned about the Grand Chimera or Guardian Chimera as well is it has to do both. It has to draw and pop. So if it does get ashed, you don't get the pop on the field. And the reason that people need to be able to use it with Brandon and Red is because it will, like I said, it has to pop. It can't just be, right, well, if you've used 2 monsters in your hand and 1 on the field, you get to draw 2, but you don't get to pop any cards. Doesn't work that way. It has to do both, which is why Brandon Red is so good, because it's a quick play that can be done during your opponent's turn. They've also got stuff like Branded Opening, which does not send as cost, meaning that you can send Tragedy to special summon out Aluba from the deck, trigger Aluba's effect, trigger Tragedy's effect. And the reason that is important is it lets you bypass, as Carl mentioned, the restriction of not being able to use a normal summoned monster effect that turn with the Branded engine. So it is a route, sorry, not the Branded engine, the Brave engine. So it is a route to kind of play around that big restriction that may cause issues if you forget about it. So that's pretty much it. Depending on the route that you want to play will dictate how invested you need to go into the structure decks and how you want to progress Despias going forward or Branded going forward. But you'll get a bit more information once we talk about the structure deck next, and why it's definitely worth it. Like, the way I see it is, when a structure deck comes out, if the cards that it is introducing us to could arguably demand a £7 as a single fee for a single card, there is no reason not to get or not to pre-order your like playset of them, because then if a reprint is confirmed, straight away through 2 cards you already make your money back on the structure decks. With that being said, let's move into our, unless Carl, have you got anything more you want to say?
No.
Nope.
Spot on.
Cool. So let's move into our main phase 2. Let's talk about our topic of discussion and kind of carry on the theme of this. And we'll talk about the structure deck, Albaz Strike. So, the structure deck of Albaz Strike was released in December 4th, 2021 for the OCG, and it's been slightly delayed for us here in the TCG, but we are due to get it on the 14th of April, which is about 2 weeks' time from when this comes out. The recommended retail price of the structure deck is about $9.99. Some stores will be doing discounts and deals, and on top of that as well, if you buy your free structure decks, you may even get a Lost Art promo depending on the local environment. It revolves around Fallen of Albaz, which is an effect monster that not only had an ultra rare reprint in last year's Megatins and original print of a secret, but is also getting an ultimate rare print in OTS 19. Basically states the following effect: that it gives you the ability to discard a card and fusion summon using only itself and a card on your opponent's field as fusion material to produce any of its fusion monsters from the extra deck. So you can kind of understand why this was given its own structure deck, and why it can kind of be viewed as a very good investment, in my opinion, because I feel that depending on what reprints come into play will dictate how much more money you need to invest if you want to play it a specific way. But I already feel that by introducing something like Branded Fusion, which we've mentioned previously, basically lets you fuse an Albaz fusion monster using materials from your deck. The Ice Jade monster, which becomes a non-target banished effect, gives you less and less reason not to want to pick up a structure deck like this. We've already talked that it gives you a monster negate in the form of the Tri-Brigade Meria Carrier as well, and it also gives you the fusion monster. Well, most of the fusions should be reprinted, and I'll go through the OCG list in a minute. It also gives you a fusion monster that lets you return the materials from your graveyard back into the deck in order to fusion summon a second monster. So it's just how you can, one card, in theory, can lead you into the Ice Jade. And then you've still got 4 more cards to play with, so you've got your stuff like your Fusion Destiny, and everything else like that. So, the OCG structure there, what core reprints did they receive? Well, their core reprints that are notable is Pot of Extravagance, Dark Ruler No More, Call of the Haunted, and of course Ice Dragon's Prison. So just by reading those off, you already see the caliber of reprints that the OCG got. Now, whether we will match that or not is a different story. I feel that it would be difficult to not give us what they've got, because there is no core alternative. I believe they also got I heard speculation that they got Lightning Storm, so I'm just gonna double check that once I find the card list. But basically the structure deck came with 5 tokens as well. So
yeah, I've got a card list in front of me and there is no Lightning Storm. Like, spells is Paradise, Branded Fusion, Branded in White, Branded Bond, Fusion Gate, Fusion Recycling Plant, Fusion Substitute, Gold Sark, Pot of Extravagance, Call by the Grave, Dark Ruler No More. That's the spells.
Yeah. So straight away you can see that the spell reprints are pretty decent. I mean, what could they give us instead of those cards? Like, Dark Ruler is Dark Ruler. It's already had a structure deck reprint. It would be nice to get another reprint for the pure fact that it has been kind of delayed a lot. Pot of Extravagance, I think, is a very nice reprint. And then I think it's random. I don't think that you'd ever actually want to activate Pot of Extravagance in an Albaz deck. But, I mean, the closest thing they could give us is Pot of Avarice. Ice Dragon Prison, very nice reprint if that is confirmed for, like, if we do get that confirmed for us. I think the only other one that I would question is probably Call by the Grave, because we've got it at 1, whereas I believe the OCG have it at 2. So, I mean, that'll probably be an MST, the go-to reprint.
Or a Dark Magician.
Yeah, or Dark Magician. Or a Blue Eyes alternate art. They also got a reprint in the structure deck, of course, Fallen of Albaz. They also got the Albellion, which is the effect monster dragon version of Albaz. They got Red MD. They got Branded Opening. They also got Titaniclad, the Brigade, so which is the Tri-Brigade one. They got the Spring Gun option as well. And I believe it is Albion, which is the one that requires you to use a light monster, which is why the Hex Seal is important. So definitely go and look at the Hex Seals themselves, because that one lets you banish the materials in the graveyard to fusion summon another monster. They also really randomly got Fleur de Lis as a reprint rather than like Ecclesia or something along those lines.
That is very strange. So it's like they can have the body, but not the negate.
Yeah, exactly, which is a little bit weird. But I suppose Ecclesia has just been given an ultimate rare print. Not that justifies it, but yes, with the OCG decks, and I expect this to be the same as the Charmer deck, they actually got all of their tokens as well. So they got 5 tokens, and some of them look really cool. There's an Aluba of the Wicked Dogma, which is awesome. I'll put all of these up on the screen as well. There's a Tri-Brigade token, the 2 Virtuouses, Ecclesia the Exiled, and Albaz the Shrouded. So you can kind of tell from the names where the story's going. They got as basically like a normal common card, Unlikely Sword Soul allies, Spring Guns Kit, and Tri-Brigade Merry Carrier. So they were just brand new cards that were added. One of them is a Fet Tuner monster, which is the Unlikely Sword Soul allies. One of them is just a normal effect monster, and the Tri-Brigade Merry Carrier is basically like a hand trap. They obviously got Fallen of Albaz, Albion the Shrouded Dragon, Dogmatica Felidius, Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, Thunder King the Lightning Strike Kaiju, Chaos Dragon Levianeer, Raiden the Multidimensional Kaiju, Artifact Scythe, please don't be in the structure deck, White Dragon Wyvern Buster, Black Dragon Collapse Serpent, Star Liege Safer is actually a really good reprint because right now they're very expensive. Kibra Dragon Magic, Summoner Monk, Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, Effect Veiler, Omni Dragon Brotor, Paradise Branded. So the Paradise Branded is the spell card that basically says your opponent cannot respond to your fusion summons, which is really important. Branded Fusion is a super rare. Branded in Right, Branded Bond, Fusion Gate, Fusion Recycling Plant, Fusion Substitute, Gold Sark, Pot of Extravagance, Called by the Grave, Dark Lord No More, all common cards. Branded Blade, Branded Condemption are all trap cards. One of them is a counter trap, one of them is a normal trap. Screams of the Branded, Judgment of the Branded, Necro Fusion, Back to the Front, Ice Dragon Prison, there can only be one. Dimensional Barrier, nice. Waking the Dragon are all commons. The ultra rares is Mirror Jade, the Ice Dragon, and Lubellion. So Lubellion is the other dragon that lets you shuffle the materials from the grave back into the deck to fusion summon. They got a common Titaniclad, Brigade, Spriggun, and Albion the Dragon. So all of those were commons. So their other super rares that I might have missed was, well, Branded Fusion's a super rare. We already kind of expect that to be the same for the TCG. And then I believe the Merry Carrier might be a super rare as well.
So I've just read the normal trap Branded Blade for the first time ever, and I'm pleasantly surprised by that. That's quite big. Banish any number of branded spell / traps from your graveyard. Special summon that many Ice Blade tokens. Dragon Dark level 8 attack 2,500 defense 2,000. You can banish this card from the graveyard, then target one of your banished Fallen of Albaz or monsters that list it in their text, and it to your hand. Jesus. Yeah. Flood your board with 6 and add back a card. Like, that's it's a normal trap, which sucks, but in general, that's pretty decent.
Yeah, but it's a branded spell, so Aluba just searches it. So if you want to be controlled, if you want to be defensive, you've got it for later games as well. The artwork is stunning. It's basically the Ice Jade Dragon fighting the Dark Sword Soul, cheesing, which is really, really cool. So
push the game with that very easily.
Yeah, exactly. And you can kind of see it. And the fact that they're dark dragons as well is they're very easy in fusion material. Another reason that Token Collector could be an interesting tech or interesting usage for everyone as well. So there's a lot to kind of keep in mind when you're looking at these structure decks. Like I said, I reckon that it will be 1 token per structure deck. The tokens are actually really, really nice. You've just got to kind of find them is the issue, or get them. And again, I'll put these all up on the screen as well so you can see them as we talk through this. So just quickly, the Lubellion is 1 Dark Monster plus Fallen of Albaz. If this card is fusion summoned, you get to discard a card to fusion summon a level 8 or lower fusion monster from your extra deck, except itself, by shuffling fusion materials listed on it into the deck from among your cards on the field, in your graveyard, and or face up banished cards. But for the rest of this turn, this card cannot attack. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except fusion monsters. So the reason Lubellion is so good is, in theory, you activate Branded Fusion, you summon Lubellion. Now, if you want to, you can send Dark Magician. So you send Dark Magician, or you can send a Shaddoll monster, Shaddoll Beast, to draw a card, to then send Fallen of Albaz. You will then summon Lubellion. let's say you sent Shadow Beast. Shadow Beast will then let you draw the card. You will then, if this card is fusion on, get to discard a card to put the Beast and Albaz back into the deck. That will then ultimately lead you to a window. You're then locked out of special summoning except fusion monsters, which you really don't care, because if you were to special summon your Aluba, you search out Branded in red. Straight away, you've got the materials ready to go for your Chimera Dragon. Not to mention as well that you, by drawing that one particular card off of Beast, if you did it that way, or you're sending Dark Magician to the graveyard, you can then spin them back into the deck to then make your Dragoon. Dragoon would only be a 1 negate, but you've done all of that from one card. Yes, Ash Blossom is going to be your weakest card, but just as a little preview as well to kind of solidify that this is far from the finished product, they also got a new dragon which looks incredible. It's called Abyssal Dragon Alba Renentus. So this is due to come out in Dimension Force, which means we'll get some more support in the future. It requires Fallen of Albaz and one or more dragon monster. Cannot be used as fusion material, must be either fusion summoned or special summoned by sending the above cards from either player's monster zone to the graveyard. This card can make... Go on.
Yeah, the mirror match, that is going to be absolutely ridiculous. Go first.
Exactly.
You sure you want to go first?
This card can make a number of attacks on monsters, thankfully, each battle phase up to a number of materials used for its summon. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you get to add one poly normal spell or fusion normal spell from your deck to the hand. So, what does that mean? Well, basically, if you send this off into Dear Servant, you get to search out a branded fusion, which is ridiculous. Heck, you can even search out a Red Eyes fusion. So it basically replaces that Chimera Flesia Predaplant monster, and then it becomes a Fortress Dragon for dragons. So it's like, cool. DNA surgery. Let's make everything dragon, bro. Let's go.
It's going to be an expensive card. I think around the £30 mark at least.
Well, yeah, if they give it a secret spot, which to be fair, its artwork deserves, and it will be on the it'll be a month after the structure date's been released, I wouldn't put it past it. It's a very good card, and all it requires you to have is Fallen of Albaz. So very, very easy to do. Exactly. So that's pretty much it. I'm just going to have a look at the counter trap now as well. So the branded condemnation, like the artworks on these cards are beyond beautiful. So like the branded condemnation is basically Sword Soul Iris, which is Fleur de Lis, fighting Dramaturge, which of course was originally Dometica Maximus. So when a spell trap or monster effect is activated that includes an effect that special summons a monster or monsters, return a fusion monster or monsters that lists Fallen of Albaz as material to your extra deck. One face up you control or 2 from your graveyard. And if you do, negate the activation. And if you do that, destroy that card. You can banish this card from the graveyard to then target a branded spell or trap in your graveyard, except itself, and add it to your hand. You can only use one effect per turn and only once that turn. So it's basically a counter trap that lets you recycle your Mirror Jade targets that you've sent to the graveyard. It also enhances the use of stuff like Dometica Maximus and the Dogmaticas in general, because you're putting the cards in the extra deck, into the graveyard. You're then gaining their effects to either search out a Dogmatica, to search out the Tri Brigade, to even search out a normal fusion spell or trap. So you're controlling the game state, and then you're putting them all back into the extra deck to go again. It's a shame it doesn't say face down banish, because then that would justify a reason of playing something like Extrav. But it's crazy. And this is all in the structure deck as well. So the counter trap may or may not be properly played, but you're definitely going to be playing one of the Lubellion, at least, one of the Mirror Jade, and then you're going to be playing free Fusion Destiny. So it's an absolute no-brainer. Plus you'll be playing one of the Paradise to protect your fusion plays, one of the Mirror Carrier, which again is very, very important. If you fancy a control build, you're going to be playing Branded Blade. If you've got the Despia access, you can play that route. If you don't and you want the cheaper option, you can play the the Dogmatica route. It just serves so many purposes for me, and I think is a no-brainer. Like, yes, okay, if you have Ecclesia the Virtuous, amazing. You've got another step ahead of the game. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. You just go Kaiju Control, because then you don't really need to worry about triggering certain things. So to me, 100% you should be buying 3 of these. I believe the pre-orders are already open, so definitely go and get those locked down while you can, because before you know it, people are going to start doing exactly what they did, let's say with the Cyber Dragon Structure decks, because I think with the Cyber Darks, it was just like get imperm, and once everyone got imperm, that was it. But I feel that this is going to be...
Yes, so the Masquerade did it with Ash.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Exactly that. It's going to be one of the ones that if you really want first editions, you want to get your 3. And whether you get more than 3 because you want to get 4 and you want to keep 1 sealed for future purposes, entirely up to you. But to me, I'd be getting 3 of this just for branded fusion. I would be getting 3 of this. And this is before we've even start to touch on the reprints. If the reprints are the confirmed ones, great. If they're better ones, even better. If they're weaker ones, yes, I'll be disappointed, but I won't be like, that won't change me to go from, oh, I'm not going to get this deck to I'm going to get it. So 100%, my advice is to get 3. Carl, I assume yours would be the exact same.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, I got 6 free for me and 3 to sell because I know it's going to happen.
So as you can tell, Carl is a vendor in practice with all of his Sky Striker purchases and everything else. Excellent. Okay. I think we've babbled on long enough. Let's move into the end phase and let's talk about your guys' questions, and we'll also talk about your guys' reviews as well. So thank you so much for listening through the entire episode. I know it's been a little bit rusty. We're just dusting those off. We'll try and get this back into route, but hopefully this has got you through your early morning commute, your late night commute, or your general day at work. So let's start answering the questions that you guys have sent in for us to answer. So from D15 Torted, so it's basically like distorted, but with 15 in the middle. Really hyped for this. Thoughts on the originality of decks in the current format? Carl's going to love this one. Considering 90% of decks these days are playing DPE, Brave Token, and to a lesser extent, Scythe and Dragoon. I already know my thoughts and feelings on this one, Carl, so I'll let you get your rage out of the way, and then we'll come back to this.
It's terrible. It's such a... I don't mind the format in the sense that you can play everything and everything has a chance to compete, but again, if you don't have Brave, you're not going to win. It's a sad truth, and I personally don't understand paying that sort of money for a Omni Negate and a bounce in the battle phase, but whatever. In general, yes, DPE Scythe is absolutely terrible. You know, the good old phrase, just draw that out, bro. Just draw that out. Like, it's not practical. It's not a good game state in a mode. But I'm pretty sure we would have had it by now. I'll give an example. I played Drytron yesterday, and I purposely went for the Dragoon package over the DPE package because I got fed up of it happening to me, and I wouldn't do that to someone else unless I was seriously going to regionals and I needed to get those points. Yeah, the format's a bit stale, but it's creative in the sense that everything can compete. We've had worse and we've had better.
It's kind of like that meme. What is it? You couldn't live with your own failures, and where did that bring you? Back to me. It's basically like talk
DPE and Scythe. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. DP and Scythe, and then going back to Dragoon. I pretty much mirror exactly what Carl's saying. I feel that this format is so boring. Now, I understand the Brave Engine, because I, like Carl, I initially thought, the Brave Engine is just an Omni Negate. It's actually not, because playing it a lot, it's additional bodies on board, it unlocks link plays, synchro plays, you name it. So to me, it's a little bit more effective, but I can understand why, and it is so boring. Like, I'm specifically looking for decks that don't care about the extra deck, because I can't be bothered to use my brain to try and deal with this. Like, the last thing I want is my opponent to win the dice roll, go first, set up Scythe DPE lock, and then just go, right, cool, well, I've instantly won game 1, and then I go, yep, sure, I may or may not win game 2, and then game 3, I'm just going to get the repeat of it all coming back again. Now, I know there are ways to stop DPE, yada, 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 but in a 40-card deck, if you do not see you're out to it, and the smarter, higher level competitive players are bouncing around or being able to play around stuff like droplets, chalices, imperms, you name it. So it's not as cut and dry. I feel that... Go on.
Yeah, just draw that out, bro. That's all they're going to say. Draw that out.
I mean, I've kind of found myself doing this as well because I feel that the Brave engine will get touched in some way or another. I've actually kind of found myself just basically looking at over old decks that, I mean, this is a very big positive for the branded engine, but it is not a big enough positive to say go spend 350 quid on it. I've been looking over old decks and decks that could not compete because they lost instantly to Nibiru, or they lost instantly to one form of negate. And I've kind of gone, right, well, can I benefit from the Brave package? If the answer is yes, then I'm going to put it in and try it. Now, obviously, for examples of that, I've tried to play it with Synchrons. I've tried to play it with Mech Knights. It's not fun. It does get quite boring, which is why I only play it at one tournament and then go, all right, cool, I'm a little bit bored on that, and change it over. The format is very stale, so I completely agree with Distorted on this one as well. I do feel that creativity and originality of decks as well has been very, very, very sacrificed, because it is basically down to, oh, cool, I've got this deck. I feel that it's like, if I've got access to the DP engine, you put that in and then you build back around it. And then you kind of justify it to yourself as like, oh, this isn't just a DPE deck. It's a Toon deck, but with DPE in it. And it's kind of like, we're in this sad position where you need to do that though. You need to, if you have access with the branded and you're like, oh, I really want to play Toons. Unless you're going to a very, very, very casual locals. If you want to take Toons to a local event and do well with it and be like, hell yeah, I topped with Toons, I guarantee you 90% of those decks will end up having, if it does top, a DPE package and a Brave package. But on the flip side of that, the Brave package and the DPE package kind of basically say to you, here, I'm going to allow you to make Toons competitive, or I'm going to allow you to have Toons compete on a high level. Now, I'm not saying that's the only way to play, because there are a lot of people at our locals that do incredibly well without even going near these particular type of engines. The Sword Soul can still do it. Tri Brigade can still do it. A control deck like Eldritch can still do it as well. It's just like, if you say to me, I want to compete at the highest possible level and be as competitive as I possibly can, unfortunately, you will need to play those decks. It's basically like the 97% format with Spirals. Everyone was playing Spirals because it was the best deck. Now, if DPE was its own deck on its own, or if the Brave engine was its own deck on its own and wasn't mini engines, and it competed to the same level, then I reckon you could probably look at a breakdown of a high level event, and I guarantee you 97%, maybe 90% of those people would have been playing either the DP engine, the Brave engine, the Scythe engine, or a mixture of all three. So it is very stale. I feel that it has really restricted the creativity of decks, but I feel when we get the branded engine, that might change a little bit. And then, considering they haven't put a date for the next ban list, which we are waiting on, that might change as well. Moving on to our second question. This one is from Zane Truesdale. He's got a lot. So he's got a few questions and 2 special cards for us to read. So what new decks have you found during COVID that you never thought they existed? Do you have any on that, Carl?
That I found that I never knew existed. I'd say revisited, like decks that I didn't know existed. No, not really. I'm sad, and I know most of the decks. I don't know how to play them, but I know of them. Decks that I've revisited, yes. Blue Eyes, obviously, with the new release, and this is probably going to make Joe very happy, but Photon Galaxy.
Yeah, fair. I feel that I've revisited, I think the one deck that I haven't touched for absolutely ages and I revisited was DDDs. I think the new support just made it so much more playable. Second question, how was the experience playing in your locals with all of the precautions and protections? I mean, ultimately, I think at the point where it got to where locals open back up, I didn't care. Like, I would go there in a hazmat suit if I absolutely had to, because I was just that desperate to play Yugioh again that wasn't through a remote door.
Yeah, I was the polar opposite, but I hated remote duel. I hated Remote simply because when I played one, I think I only did one or two, and when I'm looking at the camera setup, when I'm seeing it done for a YCS Remote, it's great having to have the dual camera. But when everyone's at home with their one camera, I can't trust them when I can't see their hand. I know that sounds bad. So easy for someone to cheat. So for that reason, Remote Duel, I weren't interested.
Yeah.
And during COVID, going to events like I was coming from a household that had someone that could be very badly affected due to could be hospitalized because of it. So I weren't going anywhere near one. I also, me personally, found wearing the face mask all day extremely uncomfortable. So that was a big no-go for me personally. I know it affected everyone differently.
Yeah, no, I agree. Definitely. The face mask was a pain in the backside, but it's kind of one of the ones where you had to do it. The third...
necessary.
Yeah. The third question is about clear support. And he mentions about Clear World and Clear Vice Dragon, but to be honest, I don't think either of us know enough about them to even really comment on that.
No, I don't.
Yeah, he's provided two. I was just gonna say he's provided two new custom cards as well that he wanted to look over. One is an aroma seasoning, which again I don't think either of us are in a position to kind of.
No, I know aroma quite well.
Okay, so his custom card is send one monster from your hand to the graveyard. Add one level 5 or as cost, by the way. Add one level 5 or lower plant monster from your deck to the hand. You can't special summon monsters from your extra deck or activate their effects except for plant monsters or monsters special summoned using plant monsters as material. The turn you activate this card. During your main phase, on the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from the graveyard, apply one of the following effects. Destroy one plant monster you control, tribute one plant monster you control, you gain 1,000 life points. You can only use each of the effects once per turn.
Great card, really good card, reasonably fair, but at the same time, that isn't going to be just for aroma. That is too good for every plant deck, in my opinion. The being able to add the plant card to your hand, every plant deck will play that card. If you change some of the effects more to aroma, I'd say fair. But being able to search out anything isn't it Cactus Bouncer is a summon, locks people out of summons. In general, that might be actually broken, funnily enough. But in aroma, if you change some of the text so it locks it specific to them, it'll be great.
Fair. Okay, so the next one is Cyber Dark Booster. It's a Dark Machine level 4 with 2100 attack and 800 defense. This card's name is treated as Cyber Dark Horn, Edge, or Kill while on the field or in the graveyard. You can only use the following effects once per turn. You can discard this card to add a Cyber Dark monster from your deck to your hand except itself. And if you do, send one level 3 Cyber Dragon monster from your deck to the graveyard, or one monster from your extra deck to the graveyard. If this card is banished by card effect, you can target up to 3 machine monsters that are banished, return them to the graveyard.
That's a lot better. That I can. This is where we need Joe. Joe would have had an absolute. I'll leave it at that. He would have had a very happy moment just listening to that card. That's fair. I believe the search is fair. Was it shuffle 3 banished back in was reasonably fair.
Yeah.
I like that. That's well written, and it's generally would be an amazing card, but not stupidly broken. It would support the deck enough.
Cool. Okay, we've got Tyson Potato. He's basically just asked best meta decks ranked so far. Now, I'm not going to go into huge detail on this because
Brave 1, Brave 2, Brave 3.
Based ball, Sword Soul. I mean, it's difficult because I feel my local environment is very, very different. I think when I went to a regional environment, again, it does adapt. I feel that based is the top, but then to me, I still feel that based can be outed relatively easily depending on what, if you go first, I feel they struggle because if you just go D barrier, they kind of lose all their synchro plays. But then I think the same can be said for Sword Soul. I think the same can be said for Well, not that everyone's playing D barrier anyway. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to rate these meta decks because I think they're all boring. I really do. Like, based based is quite interesting to me because it's synchro based, and I'd like to kind of operate like the synchro engines, which is why I quite like Sword Soul. But I do get bored quite easily. It's kind of like, yeah, cool. I've done what I need to do. Now on to the next one. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's base 1, Sword Soul 2, and 3 either Brave Prank Goods or Eldritch Cybers.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Eldritch aren't doing much, like more with skill drain and stuff floating around. But I feel that there's just a lot of macro hate.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people aren't, because of this engine that's came out, the Brave engine. A lot of people have actually walked away from Eldritch, but regionals I've been to recently, it's like every time I look at the top table, there is an Eldritch player. Like, there is an Eldritch player with trains and the skill drain. Like, it is good. It's still great. Nothing's happened to it. There's no reason it can't win games. For me, that's still a top 3 contender.
Yeah, it kind of feels the same to me as Flunderies as well. It's like they got a really good new card, yet they still brick and they can still play like 9 or maybe 8 of the strongest draw cards ever. So they can still play Extrav and they don't care. They can play Prosperity and they don't care. And they can also play Duality and they don't care, yet they still brick. It's just beyond me. Yeah. Okay, so from Pedalopagus, what is your opinion on the current meta trend of homogenized? Oh, there we go. Good English, Dale. Engines/decks. So it's just piles of cards. Do you like the splashability, or do you prefer decks to feel more unique from each other? Well, I think we kind of already touched on this in Distort's question. Like, I don't like the pile of card decks, but I can understand why they work. Like, it is basically saying, right, well, all of these engines are crazy good. They don't clash with each other on a massive scale, so we can put them all in a deck. But I would prefer decks to be... I feel that if decks are contained within themselves, and for example, if Fusion Destiny basically said you can only summon Dark Heroes for the entire turn, like rather than the rest of the turn, but for the entire turn, it would not be splashable, and it would only be a hero card, which then doesn't make it an issue because it would then be people would be playing heroes, which obviously have their core weaknesses already. So. Yeah, I prefer stuff to be shut off because then you get more of a variety. You get when your meta then becomes, okay, cool, it's now heroes versus a brave deck. It's now heroes versus an artifact deck. Like, yeah, I feel it's better that way.
I'm the same. I don't like the cluster of a good card deck. It started with, from what I remember, it started with Invoked. When Invoked Hand Trap that's it. Like, it was just Invoked and Hand Traps. And since then, it's like when there's a good card and especially if you can get away with doing a small engine and you can put in multiple engines in the same deck, if they slightly relate to each other, it works. I don't like it. It doesn't seem creative. It doesn't seem personal, right? I know like for me, personal factor is quite big in the game. I like to play a deck that I think suits me in a sense. So I look at the artwork, which is my biggest thing, and I love that artwork. But if I'm just piling all these good cards into one deck, that's not personal. That's me going, well, this is good, it should make me win. This is also good, it should make me win. But each to their own. Some people get their highs out of just winning. Some people just want to enjoy the game.
Yeah. So it all depends on the play style. But yeah, for me personally, I think Carl as well, we pure where possible. Last question, all right, is from Skinder or 5Kinder, something like that. 5Kinder Triple S. How should they hit Sword Soul? I mean, I think long. It's sad to say this, but I feel long U is the issue. Like, I don't care about them. They're level 8 synchros. I don't really mind that. But Carl's cracking in the background.
No, yeah, it was my PC just went to sleep, but I managed to move the mouse quick enough. Yeah, Sword Soul, how'd you hit it? I don't think it. Yeah, apart from the new synchro, like.
I mean, the new synchro doesn't bother me too much, but I feel that I don't want to say ban Long Yu because then it becomes very unfair, but I feel they already have the ability to loop it. So even if you were to hit it to 1, it cuts down the consistency of them going Baron. And obviously what Long Yu gives them that the others don't is the burn of 1200. So if they really, really wanted to, they could burn for 1200 and then take forever. Or they burn for 1200, make the other guy that then burns you for another 1200 if you activate a spell, 1200 if you special summon a monster. And already it puts you under a massive ticking clock, which I think is just... It's a restriction that it didn't need. Like, I get it. They got a Foolish Burial with Tyre. They got a draw with Moyi. What do you give the level 6? But if the level 6 was harder to summon or harder to use... I think if anything, they'll probably hit the 10 years, which I don't agree with, but they'll probably hit the 10 years.
Yeah, I think if Konami were to hit it, it'll be the 10s. However, I don't think it's necessary. I think Sword Soul don't do anything decks haven't done before them. Sword Soul are just very consistent in what they do. Sword Soul as a deck isn't broken, it's just good. Like, it's an all-round good, consistent deck. I don't like the new synchro simply because we have a thing called time. Like, get rid of go back to 0, 1, 2, 3. That card's fine, like perfectly fine. But when you're looking in time and you got that amount of burn damage, like a couple hundred here or even 500 here is annoying, but not the end of the world. But that's pretty much, a level 3 or level 4 monster attacking direct. So, like, I don't agree with that card, but Sword Soul in general, I think, are fair and don't really need hitting. I think if you're having a hard time with Sword Soul, look into your back row control cards, your floodgates, and even if you're playing a card that matches an attribute or a type with theirs, maybe look into Super Poly. But in general, I think the deck's good and fair.
Yeah, I don't think they have anything that's like. I think Protoss was an issue card, which I understandably got hit, but I don't think they have anything right now apart from, like, I don't mind the draw off of Moyi. I think that's relatively fair. I don't mind the search off of Yugioh. I think that's pretty fair. I think Long Yu is the only one that I have a problem with, because it is very, very simple. It's discard, summon, make a synchro 10. Which is fine. That part I don't mind. Like, give them Baron. They need the protection to make their plays. But it's make that protection, burn you for 1200, take their time to win the game from there. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, we've all experienced that as well. That's the problem. It's become part of the game. Burn, take your time, horrible mentality. But yeah, what can we do?
Exactly that. Cool. All right. Well, that is pretty much all of the questions for this episode. Thank you so much for sending those in. We are nearly at the 2-hour mark. Hopefully by the time I've cut this down a little bit as well, it won't be as long. But this is definitely something that you can put up on YouTube and listen them along. It's something you can download on Spotify, iTunes, or of course, Podomatic as well. Take it with you, do what you need to do, and just enjoy it. Let us know your comments. We've had some amazing feedback. So I'm just going to, not so much patting my own back, but I feel that the team have really, really appreciated all of this as well. So I kind of want to shout these out because it's been amazing feedback that we received from you guys. So from Das321, truly entertaining from the start to the end phase. This is something about this podcast that makes it special in a trading card game community and its presenters of the show. Each host has a unique personality and it truly shows in such a charismatic fashion from a casual to competitive perspective. So thank you so much for that. We've also got amazing. I'm not just saying this for the points, but this is one of the best, most enjoyable and entertaining podcasts. And it's got amazing hosts and it's just one of the best podcasts around. We also got from Weeaboo Chad, so it's probably Donald. First off, best Yu-Gi-Oh podcast of all time, hands down. And here are my answers for the giveaways that we did a long time ago. Picture Squeezer, keep the content coming. By far the most structured Yu-Gi-Oh podcast. Takes a lot of work to put out this much into a podcast. Great listening. Keep the weekly content coming. I've then got Jutmain. The podcast is dope. So thank you for that. Mr. Krabs is awesome, so that's a great name already. Great for Yu-Gi-Oh fans. Shelter 45, it's time to podcast. not bad for true Yu-Gi-Oh fans. Help keeps me busy at work when I'm itching for duels. So that's great as well. And then there was one that I'm trying to find. So what have we got? We got Ytepmic 8001. In-depth and quality. Feels like the boys after locals. Boy Squad. Yu-Gi-Oh 100%. I just started listening to this podcast and so far I love it. I love how we talk about the decks and an actual clean Yu-Gi-Oh podcast. Phantom Knight player, boo. But he appreciate it if we could make an episode on the strategies. He enjoys listening to the podcast and would recommend it. Definitely 1 million or like 100 million stars out of 10.
About the Phantom Knight part, but yeah.
Nice. And then this one as well. So this one's from Cozy. So I think this is one that I was looking for. It's hard to find a Yu-Gi-Oh podcast without the host using garbage curse-filled language to fill in a sentence to be edgy. It is really refreshing to hear intellectual conversations about my new favourite hobby. Great work so far. He's very pleased. He will continue to listen until he is unable to listen in front of his daughter, which I hope doesn't happen. So thanks, guys. I'm planning on listening to old episodes if things continue as such. So do not worry on that one, Kozil. We plan to keep this as PG and as clean as possible because that's what we want. We want younger people to be able to listen to this as well. Whether your daughter's a Yu-Gi-Oh fan or not, hopefully it can inspire younger players as well and then kind of keep them entertained. But yeah, thank you so much for every single one of you that's listened. I know this has been a long episode, but we wanted to kind of come back with a bit of a bang. Whether you listen to this all in one go, whether you listen to it throughout your day, entirely up to you. We will try and make this a more regular occurrence, try and get these back to being a monthly episode. I just need to find alternative routes to upload the podcast to so you can all download them and enjoy them. As absolutely all, guys, thank you so much for listening. I've been Dale. Carl has been very well behaved.
It's been hard work, I won't lie.
But yeah, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, guys. Stay safe, and as absolutely always, happy dueling.